You are looking at one of the fastest, most technically advanced saloon cars the world has ever seen, because even in standard form, the new 75 grand Mercedes E63 boasts 563 bhp, courtesy of its tweaked 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine. Go for the 83 grand S model, however, which is the one we test here, and that rises to a vaguely ridiculous 603 bhp with an astonishing 850 Nm of torque to go with it. The E63 also comes with a 9-speed dual-clutch gearbox and launch control, and as a result, it can, says Mercedes, hit 62 miles an hour in just 3.4 seconds. And if that's not enough to blow your mind, it's also 4-wheel drive, although as we'll discover in a bit, you can switch this to make it rear-wheel drive by pressing the right buttons. For the time being though, what is this monster of a saloon car like to drive? Is it the hot rod that it so clearly appears to be on paper, or has Mercedes-AMG managed to engineer several cars together under just one roof?
Well, the very simple answer is, and perhaps not too surprisingly, the E63 is pretty awesome on the move. I've driven it down a motorway. I've actually already driven it around the track, but we'll show you that a bit later. But its best environment is on the road. I mean, you look at the numbers and you think 603 horsepower and 2 tons and 850 Nm of torque, and you just think, what is that going to feel like in a saloon car? But you do have to select the right mode with the E63, depending on your mood, depending on the environment, depending on the type of road you're driving on. You've got this little rocker switch down here, and you've got anything from comfort to sport plus to race, and then to individual, where you can tailor the steering, the throttle map, the gear change speeds, the way the diff reacts, the way the ESP system reacts. You really can change the mood and tone and feel of this car. So if you just want to bumble down a motorway in it, it feels like a really sort of luxurious limousine. But if then you want to spool it up into race mode, because you find a nice empty piece of road like this one, put your foot down, and it just becomes a total hot rod. I mean, obviously, it's outrageously fast. And as ever, it's the torque that defines the feeling, not necessarily the power. It just piles on the revs so fast, you kind of have to keep throwing gears at it all the time, which is just as well that it has a 9-speed gearbox to allow you to do that. It's kind of either fast, really fast, mentally fast, or insane, depending on what gear you're in and how much throttle you give it. I love the steering in the E63. It's got this lovely natural feel to it. You can really feel where the front end is on this car, and I love that. It's definitely one up to Mercedes over BMW when it comes to that kind of thing. But when you put it in comfort, the ride is good. This cabin feels $1 million. It's got loads of room in the back seats, massive boot. It's a proper limo when you want it to be. I'm not quite sure that the gearbox is as snappy as it should be, even when you put it in the fruitiest setting. I'd like it to downshift faster and more instantly when you want it to, and on the way up too. And on the motorway there was just a little bit more tyre noise than you'd want from a car like this when you want it to be calm and relaxed and civilised. But beyond that, I'm totally blown away by this car. It's got so many different abilities under one roof, it's extraordinary. But now, to really explore it, we need to go to a track, and oh look, there happens to be one just down there. We've already worked out how much of a beast this thing is on the road, but this is the real deal. This is what it's like on a track. Sounds absolutely the business. Top brakes. I'm in drift mode, inevitably. God, it just lights up the rear tyres instantly. It's not giving me downshifts quite as soon as I want it to. Really don't know about the gearbox. I mean, the rest of it just behaves absolutely beautifully. It does feel like quite a big, heavy wagon though, I have to say. There ain't no track car, this. I mean, it's an absolute scream to drive on a track, but it does feel a bit heavy and cumbersome, I've got to be honest. But the amount of torque, I mean, it's just absolutely rude. You just move your right foot that much more on the accelerator pedal and the rear tyres light up. And you've got to be quite quick with your corrective lock because it goes so fast. But once you actually get it into a nice slide, it's a lovely thing to just sit there and drift in. But I mean, the way it goes down this main straight is just absolutely rude. It really is. Stops really well for a big thing too. The steering feel is nice. The brake feel is delicious. The throttle response is very good. Do you know what? It's actually got pretty good traction, considering how much torque is going through those rear tyres. Do I like the E63 on the track? Yes, of course I do, because it just feels like a complete hooligan of a hot rod car. But there's a lot of weight to manage, and there's a lot of torque to manage as well. Kind of bounces a bit at the back. I don't know if you can notice that. As it just starts to light up, the diff is kind of chewing into the floor just to try and get as much purchase as possible. I mean, eventually it just goes sideways everywhere. But then what do you expect with something that weighs 2 tons? God, it's a proper laugh, this car, it really is. But it does have its faults. The gearbox feels a bit kind of fluffy, if you know what I mean. See, that's full beans in third gear there. Nah, it's good. It's good. It's very good. What a machine.
Perhaps the E63's greatest party trick is its new four-wheel drive system. On the move, this constantly monitors which wheels are generating the most grip, and it can vary the torque accordingly by up to 100%. But where it gets really clever, and maybe a little bit naughty as well, is in its ability to become rear-wheel drive in what Mercedes-AMG describes as drift mode. To select this, you must go into the AMG menu and select the right mode. You also need to switch the traction control off and put the transmission in manual. And then, hey presto, your 603 bhp now goes through the rear wheels and the rear wheels only. At which point, the rear tyres are at the mercy of your right foot.
So, what I am now going to do is just pop it in four-wheel drive. And what Bernd Schneider has been saying is the best way to drive it is to treat it exactly as if it's a rear-wheel drive car, because it is fundamentally a rear-wheel drive car, even when it's four-wheel drive, because it's sending the power to the back until it senses there's a little bit of slip, and then it starts to send power to the front. In extreme circumstances, it will actually send 100% of the power to the front, which is just astonishing. How strong must the front drive shafts be? But he says the best way to drive it on a track is just to tease the front end on the way in, kind of like that, and not go in too fast. So I've still got the ESP off, so it's still oversteering a bit, but not anywhere near as much as it was in full drift mode. Tell you what, for a 2-ton beast, the traction out of there is outrageous. Yeah, I definitely think it's definitely quicker in four-wheel drive mode, without question, because it just gives you this extra hit of traction on the way out of every corner. Still don't get on with this gearbox, but the rest of it is wonderful. And if you could take 500 kilograms out of it, what a machine you'd have then. And I suspect eventually that will be the C63 with this engine and this gearbox, and that will be an utterly rude car. As it is, well, it's a total weapon, of course it is, and I love it to bits. It really is my kind of car, this. It does feel a little bit too heavy, and I'm not sure about this gearbox, but the rest of it, the motor, the chassis, the steering, even the brakes, flipping marvellous. This is a proper driver's weapon of a car. I love it.
Click on the video windows to watch a first drive of the smaller C63 or a track battle between the C63 Estate and Audi's RS4. Click on the play icon to watch our latest video or on our logo to subscribe.